All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jessica Linder-Gallo, and I'm the President and CEO of the Aurora Regional Chamber of Commerce. Today, we're here to talk about the Stable Fund through the City of Aurora and Invest Aurora. We're going to go ahead and get started. As we start, I want to start with just a few housekeeping items. Alexis Alimo from Invest Aurora and Colleen Doyle from the Aurora Regional Chamber are on the line with us to be our technical assistants today. If you have any issues, if you're having issues with audio, can't see the screen, anything is to pop up, please just pop in the chat and send them a message directly. You can choose to message them privately. And for those of you on the phone, you can email Alexis. So grab a pen. I'm going to go ahead and give you her email address so you can get connected with her if you're having problems. Her email is Alexis, A-L-E-X-I-S, at investaurora.org. That's Alexis at investaurora.org. So like I said, today we're here to talk about the Stable Fund with the City of Aurora and Invest Aurora. We're going to be talking about how this program works, as well as how you can apply for forgivable loan dollars for your business, as we're all trying to navigate this global pandemic together. You'll likely notice as you're getting settled in that your video is turned off and your microphone is muted. That is just to make for the best experience for all of our attendees today, so you can clearly hear our speakers. Don't worry though, we are going to be monitoring the chat throughout this webinar, so do use that feature and you'll still be able to communicate with us. Please also note that today's webinar is being recorded. With us to talk through the Stable Fund are Brian Gay and Chris Ragona. Brian Gay is President and CEO of Invest Aurora, the city's public-private economic development partnership. Invest Aurora administers the city's Finish Line grant and revolving loan programs. Since taking his position in 2018, Brian has attracted projects that have created over 700 new jobs and invested over $45 million in Aurora. Before coming to Aurora, Brian worked most recently for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Choose DuPage. Brian is a graduate of Drake University and the University of Oklahoma's Economic Development Institute. Chris Ragona is the Community Development Manager for the City of Aurora. He has a wide variety of work experience in both city and county government, as well as in nonprofit research, including the City of Aurora, DuPage County, the University of Illinois Chicago, and the Village of Hinsdale, Illinois. Over the past 10 years, he has focused on issues related to affordable housing, neighborhood revitalization, economic development, disaster recovery, and historic preservation. Chris holds a bachelor's degree from Elmhurst College and a Master of Public Service Management degree from DePaul University. He holds a certificate in Geographic Information Systems from the College of DuPage. So Chris, Brian, thanks so much for being here with us today. We're really excited to hear the content you have. After Chris and Brian present today, we're going to open this up for question and answer. So like I said, drop your questions in the chat box. We'll be keeping an eye on those throughout the webinar. We'll combine similar questions as needed, and keep in mind that we'll make sure that everybody gets an answer to any of their questions today. So with that, Brian, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and hand the reins over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessica. And before we get started, just wanted to say hello to everybody joining us today, and thank you. As Jessica said, my name is Brian Gay. I'm President and CEO of Invest Aurora. And, really, today we're here to talk about our small businesses and what the city, Invest Aurora, and all of our partners are trying to do to help out through this pandemic. Really, before we get started, too, a special thanks. Do want to give a special thanks out to Mayor Richard C. Irvin and the entire Aurora City Council. Without their approval this past Tuesday, we would not have the funds or the program to be offering this to you today. This has also been an extremely collaborative effort between the City of Aurora and all of our partners. And I'd like to especially mention the city's Innovation Department, Neighborhood Redevelopment, the Mayor's Office of Economic Development, the rest of the Invest Aurora staff, the Aurora Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the Aurora Regional Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Again, thank you to all that have participated in this program. It's been kind of a whirlwind collaborative effort. I'm so happy with where we've gotten to today. Also, I should mention at this point that the Stable Fund is supported by the Community Development Block Grant Program that's funded through the federal HUD dollars. So thank you to all again for joining us today. So as I mentioned, why are we looking to do this? Small businesses are the lifeblood of our community. And based on the data available to us, a majority of our small businesses in the city of Aurora are somewhere between 1 and 5 employees. And they really make up a majority of our local economic activity here in the city. And so throughout this pandemic, we've been looking to ways on how we can partner together to raise the resources and to help out our small businesses. The fund is, the stable fund, which is standing together with Aurora Businesses Loan Fund, or local fund, local emergency fund. Geez, could I get that right? Is really set up to be a fund that would provide forgivable loans or a grant to help our small businesses by supporting their working capital needs. And these needs are such as payroll, mortgage, rent, utilities, and other expenses related to restarting or maintaining their operations here in the city of Aurora. With the governor's extension in mind, with the governor's extension in mind of the shelter-in-place order, these funds are designed to cover those operating costs for our small businesses for 30 days as they begin to reopen or ramp back up their operations. They are intended to assist with the retention of existing jobs, the creation of new jobs in the city of Aurora, and as we have planned, these funds should be available just in time for the latest order to expire and as businesses are preparing to open. I should mention as well, this is a forgivable loan. Loans will be are forgiven within 1 year of completion of the loan documentation, provided that the businesses meet all the program requirements and reporting requirements. Also today, after today's webinar, you can go to www.investaurora.org/stable fund for more information, where we'll have supporting documentation, an FAQ, and all the application documents. So again, thanks again to the Aurora City Council. Without their support of this program, we wouldn't have nearly the amount of funds in this program that we do today. And in total, we have $1.4 million to award out to our local businesses. Those businesses, how they are eligible, they must be located within the city of Aurora, and that means that they're located within the municipal boundaries of Aurora. Unincorporated businesses located in unincorporated Aurora are not eligible. As I mentioned, we have identified our small businesses as being those with 1 to 50 employees, and so businesses must have 50 or less full-time equivalent employees as the time of their application, and they must be in business for at least 6 months. Now, we will, in this case, we will look at those businesses that have been open for less than 6 months on a case-by-case review going through this process. What are businesses eligible for? Businesses with 5 or fewer employees, and that includes the business owners, are eligible up to $15,000. For businesses with 6 to 50 employees, they would be eligible up to $25,000. And you'll see that when you're filling out the application in both English and Spanish, there is a business expense award calculator worksheet in the supporting documents that can help you find out what your specific business would be eligible for. So then how do you qualify your business for these awards? So there are 4 options. First option is business owners' household income would qualify as a low to moderate income. Option 2 is that the business creates at least 1 full-time equivalent, that's 40 hours per week, for equivalent job for an employee that qualifies as a low to moderate income. Option 3, the business retains at least 1 full-time equivalent, that's 40 hours per week job, for an employee that qualifies as low to moderate income. And then option 4 is that the business is located within the city's neighborhood revitalization strategy area and can demonstrate that need. Any job position that's created, retained, does not require an employee's income certification within that zone. And so now you might be asking yourself, what is the NRSA and if I'm located? Well, as you can see on the screen here, we do have, and this map will be available on the Stable Funds website at Invest Aurora. This zone, the NRSA, is a zone that is HUD approved and defined as the NRSA. This area, for all intents and purposes, covers the downtown in the surrounding area. And through this program, we will provide up to, but not more than 50% of the total funding to this area. So with a fund of $1.4 million, we are setting aside half, so $700,000 for this zone. But again, not more than 50% of the funds can go into this. Any funding that is not used in the zone for those businesses located in the zone will go back into the citywide pool of funds. So what businesses are eligible? And we'll have this full list located on the Stable Fund website. But this is just a list of the businesses that are ineligible for the fund. These are based on city and HUD requirements. We'll also, throughout this process, we'll be working with all of our small businesses to make sure that you qualify. Our staff from Invest Aurora and all of our resources will be available to answer any questions regarding eligibility requirements. What about national or local chains? The program is open to national, regional, and local chains with local franchise ownership. That means that those national chains, regional chains, or local chains that have a corporately owned location would not qualify, but those with a local franchisee will qualify. And those business owners that have multiple sites located within the City of Aurora's boundaries are restricted to applying, to submitting one application and for one location only. Talking about how a business will be selected, because we expect more applicants than we can fund through this program, we'll utilize a lottery program to select recipients of the funds. We wanted to create a fair and equitable process towards these funds, and Invest Aurora and city staff will work, as I had mentioned, will work together to process these applications and check them for completeness and to verify they are eligible to receive funds. So let's talk a little bit about the timing and funding for the Stable Fund. As I had mentioned, these funds are available to us through the Community Development Block Grant Program provided to us by HUD. As I had mentioned, right now we're in the process of accepting applications. In terms of timing, businesses will now have 2 weeks to apply to the program. And that will be closing the program for applications on Friday, May 15th, to those applying digitally. For those that are applying with a paper application, or those Hispanic-speaking businesses that will be applying through paper, will have until Saturday, May 16th. All applications must be postmarked, and we are asking that businesses, because of the pandemic and social distancing, all city offices are closed. We are asking that businesses mail in those applications, those completed applications, to Invest Aurora, and you can find our address located on our website at www.investaurora.org. So with the applications closing on May 15th, as I had mentioned, City and Invest Aurora staff will be working diligently to process those applications. And as I had mentioned, the lottery will take place after the application closes on or around May 15th or 16th. Businesses then will be notified after 2 weeks, and giving our staff time to process those applications. Businesses will be notified of the final award decisions on or about Monday, June 1st. As you can see here, this is just a further information on the timeline and funding. All right, and then a few other points to cover here as well. So regarding the funding itself, we expect, because this program is federally funded through HUD, we have $700,000 immediately available to us for the fund here. The first allocation would be available immediately to be distributed to selected businesses, with a portion of the funding to be delivered upfront and the remainder of those funds to be provided on a reimbursement basis. We will be sending those funds out through Invest Aurora as soon as the loan documentation is signed with Invest Aurora. As I mentioned, the first $700,000 of the fund is immediately available once the loan documentation is finalized. The second allocation, we are still waiting from HUD on the receipt of those funds. Once we have those funds in place, we will be providing then, in the same manner as the first allotment, a partial payment up front followed by a reimbursement. I should also mention at this time, and actually I'll go back 2 slides here. As part of this program, we are required by HUD to obtain certain supporting documentation throughout this process. We are throughout this process going to be working with all of our small business to make sure that they're submitting a complete application, but then also with the supporting documentation after the first allotment of funds are received. We are going to be holding back for those businesses that have not completed a full application with supporting documentation. We'll be holding back 5% retainer of your total award amount, which will be held until you submit either an updated business plan or participate in one of the business coaching programs with one of our partners. And then again, the timing and funding. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris, who's going to take us through a walkthrough of our digital application online. So Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Brian. Just going to share my screen here real quick. All right, so welcome everybody. As Brian mentioned, my name is Chris Ragona, and I'm the Community Development Manager for the City of Aurora. And I'm going to take you through just some maybe tips and tricks and resources that you can utilize as you're filling out your application. So we do offer our application both electronically and in paper form. And you're going to want to start at the website, investaurora.org/stablefund. This is where everything you're going to need to complete the application is. We're going to also upload the recorded webinar. We're going to have our updated FAQs, and anything new that takes place with this application, we'll have real-time updates as they become available. So as we start here, as I mentioned, there's a couple different ways to apply. So we've got your good old-fashioned paper application here. All you got to do is click on it. Hopefully it comes up here. So everything in here, it's got all your templates. It's got your references. It's got your signature page. It's got lines for everything here. We're okay if you want to type your answers, if you want to write your answers in, we're completely fine with that. We also know that some people might not have access to scanners. You know, if you want to use your phone to take pictures of your signatures or something along those lines, certainly understand, you know, times are a little bit different here, and certain resources that you might have had in the past are just not available to you. So as you can see, I saw there was a question on what the income thresholds are in the chat box. That's going to be in your application. So the household income depends on the household size. So as you can see, the more members in your household, the higher income threshold that you can have. As Brian mentioned, there's also a couple of different ways to apply. So unfortunately, with the paper application, we're unable to branch the different ways. So if you check option 1, certainly you can just go ahead and skip over option 2, 3, and 4. This looks like a lot here, but you're only going to be concentrating on one option and filling out the required paperwork that's in red. Something else I want to do is I want to jump to, let's see, I'm going to jump back to the online application. So if you're going to be utilizing our electronic application, you're going to want to hit this big button here, Apply Now. And that's going to take you over to our tool. It's from SurveyMonkey. It's called Survey Apply. And I think as of the start of this webinar, we had over 100 applications at least started. Within this system, this is your, your main box here. If you have multiple people who want to work on the application, you can add a collaborator. So say you have 3 or 4 people who are, someone's an expertise in the finance department, someone's an expertise on staffing, or anywhere in between. You can just type in their email address here, and then they would have access to your application. You could also take a look and see what activity that you've had. So if you do have multiple people working on the application, you can just check out the different dates and what they've been working on. Also, if you wanted to preview your application, you can go ahead and click on it there. So with the application itself, on the electronic side, there's 3 main pieces here. The biggest piece is going to be the stable application. This is going to be where all of your answers are going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and click on in here. All right, so there's a few different types of questions. Most of them are pretty quick. Borrower's name, home address, the basics, things like that. You will see there are certain sections where you do need to upload a file. Anything that you need is going to be on the Invest Aurora site. So just for example, we do need to run a credit check as part of our underwriting review. All of the available templates and reference guides, you're just going to want to click on any of these links here. And that's going to take you to the document that you need. And then all you got to do is you hit your upload file, and then it's either on your desktop or in another drive or some sort. Once again, we're okay with taking electronic signatures, or if you use your phone to take a picture, just because sometimes scanning this back into the system can be difficult, depending on what type of capabilities you have at your home or business. So as we're scrolling down here, we do have some more narrative type questions. Is your business in good standing with the City of Aurora? So if it's not, go ahead and explain. Maybe you just have a past due water balance and you're working it out with the city. This doesn't necessarily make you ineligible, but we just want to know a little bit more about the situation. All right, so again, here we have another upload a file. So we're going to be looking for a certificate of incorporation, DBA certificate, partnership filing, or however you set up your business with the state. I saw another question as far as part-time versus full-time employees. So if you have 25 part-time employees, that would count as just 25 employees. We don't need you to go ahead and do the math on coming up with how much would that be considered for full-time equivalent, at least in your original application. All right, so as Brian mentioned, there's 2 different thresholds here. We've got your micro enterprise, so this is up to 5 employees, including the owner. Once again, full-time versus part-time doesn't matter when we're counting employees. And then you've got your small business, so this is going to be between your 6 and 50 employees, and they would be eligible for up to that $25,000. So really important part here is we do need copies of your most recent payroll report so we can document the number of employees and just a little bit of history of your business. So this is going to be the most important part of the application. As Brian mentioned, these funds are coming from HUD, and there are some restrictions and qualifying requirements that need to be met. We wish this was a blank slate and we had just a check of money to give out to businesses in need, but we do have to report back to the federal government on this. So within the online application, what's nice is as you click on your different options here, as you can see right now, I haven't clicked on anything, so you can go through and see what the different requirements are, because there are going to be a few businesses that might be able to qualify a couple different ways. So we definitely want you to take a look at the different options that are available. But when I do go ahead and click on one of these options, so I'm going to click on just option 1 here, all the other options are going to disappear. So we're only focusing on option 1. This would be a low to moderate income verification of a business owner. Everything else goes away and you're only required to meet this option 1 here. So we're going to be asking for a couple of different things here, but you can upload as many files as you'd like underneath the question. I think I also saw if co-owners need to apply. So this is that spot where you let us know if someone owes more than 25% of your business interest, we're going to need to get their information as well. So just here are just some narrative questions on, letting us know your business activity, years of experience, how COVID-19 has affected your business. Certainly, I'd say over 95% of the businesses out there have been negatively affected, and some have been devastated. So we're just trying to capture as much as we can on how COVID-19 has affected your business. So right here, as Brian mentioned, we're trying to figure out your 30 days of operating expenses. And right now we're focusing on your payroll, your rent or mortgage, and utilities. But we will be considering on a case-by-case basis other different types of monthly expenses. We certainly know there's all types of different businesses out there, and they all have different type of monthly expenses. So we've left a few other categories here for you to place that in. And we've also place this 30-day expenditure calculator to help you find out, what are my 30-day operating expenses. So certainly our main focus is going to be on the payroll, rent or mortgage, and utilities. But, we will be looking at other types of different eligible expenses. And then, that last question right here is going to be your total amount requested. And, we're up to those caps of those 15 and 25,000. But some of our smaller businesses, they just might not need as much. So we're trying to spread the money around the best that we can so we can assist the most businesses. So just a couple other things here before I send it back to Brian and we start taking some questions. There's two other pieces to this electronic application. The first is the duplication of benefits review worksheet. So as we know, there's a lot of different programs out there. There's state, there's local, there's potentially county, and then there's federal, and then our city program. We just want to make sure that if you've received any other awards in the past, that our money is going towards a different use, or we are the gap. So you're not ineligible if you've received the PPP in the past, or you received the Illinois Hospitality Grant. We just want to know that, yes, I did receive it, or no, I didn't receive it, or yes, I did file an application. Just so as we're doing our underwriting, we're making sure that our dollars are going to an unmet need. So if you haven't applied or received any of this, it's pretty easy. You're just going to be checking no down the list. We do know that the payment protection, or the PPP, was renewed for additional dollars. So you might have already applied for that and you're just waiting on an answer. All you need to do is tell us that, yes, I did apply and we're waiting and it's pending. And if your business is selected for city funds, when we send out award notifications, you can give us an update on that because we always want to be the gap money. So if you're receiving that PPP, then maybe these dollars can go to someone else in need. And then we're just going to want you to sign down here, but we do understand that this is ever changing and you might have a lot of pending applications in. Lastly, we have this anticipated assistance catch-all. So there's a whole bunch of different stuff in here. Just try and be as transparent as possible with us, just because we want to make sure that we're not potentially double dipping or providing more dollars for one business. And then lastly is our signature authorization page. So this is the last thing that you're going to be doing. It looks like this. It's pretty easy. Print and sign your name. Like I said, if you have those multiple owners, we're going to want to try and get all of their signatures on here. And all of this can be found on investaurora.org/stablefund. Everything you need is going to be here. Just a couple other things about the website. We'd like to try and have all of our questions in written form by emailing stable@investaurora.org, just so we can get you that written answer. Just because sometimes a phone conversation, you might take something the wrong way, and we want to make sure that we get you that right information. We also have our phone number for our Spanish speakers down here. And if you do want to give us a call, we've got our phone number listed down here at Invest Aurora at 630-256-3160. We know that there's going to be a lot of questions, and while we have, I think, most of the answers, there might be a few unique situations for a unique type of business, and we want to get you that correct information and make sure that you're eligible to apply. So I think with that, our links to our FAQs are right here. So if you want to check those out after the meeting, there's a lot of high-level information there. If you have specific business questions that may not relate to the entire group, you might want to shoot us an email so we can get you that personalized answer. Let's see. So I think with that, Brian, if you want to retake the screen, and I think maybe we can start open the door up for some questions. Oh.
Great. Thank you guys so much for that great information. So we'll go ahead and transition to Q&A here. Brian, you want to kick us off with the FAQ before I start really firing questions at you?
Yeah. So again, this document will be available on the Investor Aurora Stable website. And as information comes in and we continue to see more and more of these frequently asked questions, we'll be sure to add those. So that way, we're not just answering one question for one person, we're answering it for everybody as it comes in. So again, just some quick highlights here, and kind of looking at the chat screen, I'm seeing some of these pop up. Again, the total funding for this program is $1.4 million. It comes to us through the CDBG fund provided to us. These federally funded funds are coming to us through HUD. As I had mentioned, there will be 2 phases to this funding, just depending on the funding that we receive from HUD. The first $700,000 is immediately available, and once we start signing the loan documentation after June 1st and the awardees are announced, the first 1/3 of that $700,000 will start flowing out to our businesses. Then, depending on when we receive that second pot of money from HUD for the CDBG program, we will then open up the second $700,000. Let's see, another couple of good ones. We do ask it, we are looking at this, each application for completeness, but also information on how COVID-19 has affected your business. We are looking to verify, while it's not a requirement, but we are asking that applicants help demonstrate to us a need for this funding and how that need will meet the requirements outlined in our application. Is this a grant or is this a loan? It is a forgivable loan, which is based on a reimbursement basis. As I had mentioned, we will be sending out approximately 1/3 of the total funds for the first pot and the first wave as we wait on supporting documentation. As that supporting documentation comes in, we will then be releasing on a reimbursement basis the rest of that award for each business. There was also a question of how much is my business eligible for. So for those businesses that we classify as a micro-enterprise business, those are businesses with 1 to 5 employees, they're eligible for up to $15,000. And for those businesses with 6 to 50 employees would receive up to $25,000. We will look at this on a case-by-case basis based on your operating expenses for 30 days. So while you may qualify for the full amount of $15,000 or $20,000, we do want to try and spread these dollars out to as many businesses that are in need, helping them get reopened or make it through this pandemic. So. But there is as I had mentioned, the calculation worksheet for your monthly expenses, and that will be able to give you an estimate about what your business would be eligible for. Is there an application fee? No, there is not an application fee, but as I had mentioned, we will have a 5% retainer of your total award to ensure that we receive all the required documentation after funds before funds are completely distributed. Is there an application deadline? Yes, as I had mentioned, the applications are closing on Friday, May 15th for those electronic filers. And then for those businesses that will be filing a paper copy, they will have until Saturday, May 16th to have those applications either received at Investor Aurora or to be postmarked. A couple other ones here. Again, who is eligible? Those businesses that that are eligible must be located within the municipal boundaries of Aurora. Those businesses that are located in unincorporated Aurora will not qualify. Businesses that are 50 employees or less, and they must be in good standing with the city of Aurora. While that may not, and in some cases that may not disqualify you, but as Chris mentioned, we do want to know about what those issues are you have with the city, and maybe something as simple as a unpaid water bill or something along those lines. So do let us know what those issues are. As Chris had said, the information on the maximum threshold for the low to moderate income for both ownership and employees is located on the website in the here on the FEQ, as well as the application. Let's see. There is some information here regarding the sharing of financial information. All this information is kept confidential. So when you do submit that information, it is kept confidential within our program. And yeah, I think I'm kind of running through these a little bit quick because I know we have a lot of questions from the group. One last one I do want to mention. This is a we are this is intended to be a job retention and or creation program. So there are 4 options to apply and qualify for the program. Again, those businesses that have low to moderate income qualifying owners, those businesses that create or retain a low to moderate income employee, and then those option 4 are those businesses that are located within the NRSA and can demonstrate a need for those funds. So I think with that, why don't we, as I switch off my screen here, we can start going through some of those questions, Jessica.
Okay, that sounds great. So before we get into these, I just want to remind everybody on the line just to keep using that chat for questions. And we will also be following up. So if your question doesn't get answered right now during this session, don't worry, we will make sure to connect you with the folks at Invest Aurora and at the city to get you an answer to those questions. Similarly, I just want to comment before we get going that the nature of many of these funds is that the questions get really specific. So if some of the questions are really specific to a single business, we'll try and pull out a little bit more general question. I'll be grouping some questions together. So if your really specific question doesn't get answered, similarly, we'll connect with you afterwards and get you that answer. So just so we know how this is going to run. So thank you guys for being so interactive in that chat box there. I'm going to go ahead and start with some that have been coming in. So the first and probably the most important question is about the actual process. So let's just revisit that for a second. Is this process first come, first served? Can you talk a little bit more about the lottery?
Yes. So this, unlike the SBA's Disaster Recovery Loan Program or the PPP, this is not a first come, first serve program. In order to make a fair and equitable process throughout this, as the application deadline closes on May 15th and 16th for this program, we will then look at all the applications, and those deemed as complete and eligible for funding will then be entered into a random number generated lottery. And then from that lottery, we will pick the first, for the first pot of money, we'll pick the first set of businesses up to $700,000 that would qualify. And then we're going to go through after that process, we will then go through and qualify further those applications to make sure that they are indeed complete, fair, and accurate. And then from that point on June 1st, all those applications that do qualify and meet all the conditions, then we will be notifying those businesses there shortly thereafter, June 1st.
Perfect. So a lot of questions that are coming through are about eligibility. So I'm going to kind of work through some of those. Chris, I'm going to direct this one to you. So I'm getting several questions about nonprofit organizations. So the question is, are nonprofits eligible? And I'm going to add on to that. Can you talk a little bit about where nonprofits can turn to for funds?
Sure. So for the stable fund, nonprofits are ineligible to apply. However, as part of the approval of the stable fund that took place on Tuesday, the city is going to be allocating an additional $200,000 for nonprofits to apply to prepare and respond to COVID-19. That application has not yet been released. My department is going to be working on putting all of that together, and we're hoping to do something similar to what we've done for stable by offering a webinar to answer questions, eligibility, and then offering either a paper and or an electronic application. So right now we're looking around mid-May to release that application. One other piece on that is those dollars have not yet been received by the city. So we're going to be working with HUD to understand when we might get our hands on those dollars. But if we can get the application out in the next couple of weeks or so, make sure that we answer all of our questions. Depending on the amount of applications that we would get, it wouldn't necessarily be a lottery, but we'd be doing some type of qualitative review on that. So for those of you on the call who have attended some of our mandatory meetings at City Hall in the past, it would be similar to something like that. So once again, you know, $200,000, and keep an eye out for when that's going to be released. Certainly, we'll be going through some of the same marketing and working with our partners to announce that date.
Great, that's really good information, Chris. So talking a little bit about geography. So you guys have touched on that a few times. If folks aren't sure on a couple of things, so one, I've seen a few questions about how you know if you're in that NRSA or not. Could you direct people back to that map again, potentially, or talk a little bit more about that? And then on the city limits, let's talk a little bit too about if you're in Aurora Township, does that mean you make it into this? And specifically, it looks like in trying to read the map, we have a question about the Fox Valley Mall area, who in that area does and doesn't qualify. So there's 4 questions in one for you guys.
So we do have in Aurora. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Oh no, I was just going to take the easy one real quick here. So as you can see up on the screen here, I hope everybody can see that at least. We do have the NRSA open again. As I had mentioned, the NRSA does cover a majority of the downtown area, and it does cover the entire downtown area with some of the surrounding areas. So as you can see, you know, this is 31 right here. Broadway over on the east side. It goes from Illinois on down to the Montgomery border, following along the river here. So any of the businesses that are within this area would qualify in the NRSA. And certainly if you're uncertain about that process, when you file your application, Invest Aurora or city staff will go through your application to verify that that's correct. And then Chris, I don't know if you wanted to touch on another part.
Yeah, I was just going to add, so on the Invest Aurora Stable Fund subpage, we do have a map of our city limits highlighted in pink. I do see that a few people said it's a little hard to read, so we'll see what we can do as far as upgrading that map, or maybe trying to use a different GIS layer to make it a little bit more clear. Certainly, if you're right on the border or you're unsure, send us a quick email with your address and your location, and we can do a quick check for you.
Great. So one of the other concerns that folks have had is about other sources of funding. So if someone has received a PPP loan or say an EIDL loan, are they still eligible for the stable funds?
So the answer to that question is maybe. It depends on what you've received the dollars for and over what time period you've received the dollars for. So for example, if you received the PPP or another type of grant or forgivable loan, let's just say for payroll expenses between March 13th, you know, the date of the stay-at-home order, to June 1st, our dollars are going to be awarded after June 1st, and you could make the case that this isn't a duplication of benefits because the sources and uses are different. What we're worried about is if someone receives PPP, let's say until September, so all of their or a majority of their expenses are going to be covered, including payroll and, you know, other general expenses, depending on what they applied for. We want to make sure that the stable funds do not go to those same payroll or general expenses. So it'll be up to you guys to tell us if you've received anything else, and then we can try and work around those different sources and uses to see where the gap might be. So for the most part, yes, you are still able to apply, but additional review is needed on our part.
And I think you kind of answered the next question in that area, Chris, which was if you got PPP funds to pay employees, can you use stable funds to be able to pay the owners who weren't able to qualify on PPP funds? So different uses is what we're looking for.
So we look at reasonable income for employees. So it is a bit of a broad definition. So the answer to that, again, is yes, but certainly we want to take a look at the different situation. You know, we don't want to write out a check to an owner for, you know, $25,000 when clearly that's not the normal amount of money that they pull in. So during our underwriting, you know, there may be a few extra questions that are asked by businesses that, you know, make that first cut and find their business within the lottery. So, you know, there may be a few times where we need to reach out to businesses to understand what their current situation is.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of case-by-case management going on here. And by the way, I have to tell you, you're starting to sound like the lawyers on our other webinars, where maybe is the answer, right? So good standing, we have a few questions on that. How does a business know if they're in good standing with the city?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to not be in good standing with the city. You know, for our down payment assistance program, we do a check just to make sure that people maybe who are renting in the city looking to buy don't have any past bills, and that could be, you know, parking tickets or, well, the majority are parking tickets or unpaid water bills or maybe other types of citations. So we have done checks in the past for them, and we can certainly do these checks again for business owners. Certainly, if there are any ongoing issues, though, you do want to, we want you to be upfront with us so we can try and work through those as quickly as possible. You know, I can't imagine we're going to come across too much, but there might be some business-specific issues where maybe they didn't have their grass was too high, or you know, there's another violation during an inspection, something along those lines. So it could be a wide variety, but we can definitely work through those.
And similarly, some concerns about folks who are in good standing with the state, but it looks like state records are being updated more slowly during COVID to reflect that. Will there be any issues if, say, their quarterly report hasn't been filed yet on the state sites or things like that? So once again, just document what the situation is. If you have a quarterly report that just hasn't been submitted, I mean, that's a very, very minor issue. If there's something where, you know, depending on the business, something is completely expired, like a license or, you know, an inspection or something major, that could become problematic. But, you know, once again, tell us up front what the situation is. And, you know, we understand that everybody, including governments, businesses, nonprofits, are struggling with their normal operations, and it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for something to be slightly off. And like Brian mentioned, we're going to be trying to award the first half of these dollars on June 1st. So we've got an extra 30 days now to work through all of that. Okay. So as far as looking at ineligible businesses, we've pointed out that there is a more complete list on Invest Aurora's website. One question that may apply to a group of businesses is, are restaurants that have slot machines eligible to apply? So
if the primary function of the business is food, that would be eligible. I know there are some establishments where it's gaming first and they have a soda fountain machine in the back. You know, without being business specific, I think that's as broad as I'd like to keep it now. For anyone who thinks they might be in that gray area, certainly send us an email as soon as this webinar is done so we can check it out, just because there may be a few businesses that we're not familiar with as far as how their operations work.
So I have a lot of questions on brick and mortar stores, and some of these get a little bit more specific. So as far as eligibility, Do you have to have a brick and mortar location? I guess would be the highest level question here. And what about locations that maybe are temporary? We've had questions about food trucks or businesses that maybe set up at other places, kind of pop-up models, if those count in that category. And then if you don't have brick and mortar, if you're home-based, are you eligible?
So at this point, we're looking at brick and mortar establishments. Home-based businesses are ineligible for the stable fund. Now, for food trucks, I can say that's something that we have not considered. So I'd like to table that question to get a little more information on the eligibility of something like that. Because you're right, they don't have a set location. Some food trucks operate primarily in Aurora, while others, go where the different fests and the crowds are. So that's something that I'd like to hold off on, and offline we can come up with an answer for those business owners with food trucks that are looking to apply.
And I think a good one and a really timely one in this COVID situation. I mean, someone asking if they have a brick and mortar, but at this point are really pivoting to be online in the foreseeable or near future. Are they still eligible?
So as of right now, if you have a brick and mortar store, we understand many businesses are closed completely, or those that are just trying to focus primarily online or with curbside pickups. So based on that, you would be currently eligible. Now, if you're looking to close that location within the next 30 days or so, that's certainly something that we'd want to take a look at. But if you're a brick and mortar store focusing primarily online during the pandemic, you would still be eligible.
Okay. If you have multiple businesses within the city that are different entities, are you able to apply for each of the businesses or only one business of which you're an owner?
So what we're looking to do is try and make this as fair as a process as possible. So if there is a business owner with 10 different businesses across the city, we're only looking for them to apply for one business, the one that's struggling the most or the one where they can demonstrate the most need. We want to give everyone a fair, one ping pong ball in the slot chance, which, wouldn't be the case if you have a business owner with 10, 15, 20 sites, because there's a much better chance that one of their businesses is going to get selected.
So we are getting towards time here. I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody, you guys have some great questions, so we probably are going to go a few minutes over here. So hopefully that is all right. But the low to moderate income, it seems like that is tripping some folks up. Can you talk about the income ranges for low to moderate income, what those are, and how maybe an employer knows if they're employing someone who's low to moderate income?
So this is a tough question, and one of the hardest things when we're using our federal funds, because people are sometimes reluctant to disclose their income. The other piece is that we're looking at household income, not necessarily the single employee. So for business owners, we need a lot more backup documentation demonstrating their income, whereas for a created or retained job, it's a self-certification. So you would have an employee self-certify that my family's income or my household income is on this set range. As far as the levels go, we threw up the scale before. A good rule of thumb is a family of four around $73,000 is considered low income in the city, with that number incrementally dropping as the household size goes down. And then on the flip side, incrementally increasing as the household size goes up. We certainly know that is tough. I will say in the NRSA, if your business is located there, we don't necessarily have to collect that income documentation because of that special designation of the district. But for those businesses located outside the NRSA, it is tough because some folks are unwilling or they don't want to supply that information. So that is a conversation that you might want to have with some of your current employees if you're looking to make drastic decisions. And then also if you're looking to hire a job, there would be that component of making sure that household size or that person that's going to be employed meets those guidelines. So I completely understand from the business owners that that is going to be the hardest piece. But my staff in community development, we've worked with this quite a bit. And, we're standing by ready to coach you or help you answer those questions. We're also developing, hopefully, the easiest templates that you can utilize to meet that requirement.
That's a really helpful offer. And we have a couple specific questions on that, but I think we'll leave that to deferring directly to you, Chris, offline. So I'm going to move to the funding calculation. I've gotten this question several times today, so I'm going to ask this one specifically. Are 1099 employees within a business considered part of the total employees calculation?
I think that's another one of the things that we didn't put down in writing or consider. So I'd like to work with Invest Aurora and the Mayor's Office of Economic Development to get the right answer that we can then update in our FAQ.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one will find its way to the website. And then just to clarify, this is a little bit different than maybe some of the other federal plots that many people are accessing. So folks are asking if they have to be able to rehire someone with this money that they've furloughed or create positions. Can you talk a little bit about, just kind of revisit briefly, that retention piece?
Sure. So there's a couple different ways to qualify for retention. The first is if, and this might be for some of the larger companies, maybe in that 35 to 50 range, where there's been an announcement that's made, where there's been furloughs, or an announcement's been made that tough decisions might be coming up, or the potential for layoffs. The other piece is if you can justify through your financials that you'll be submitting that, without these dollars coming in, when we open up, we're just going to have to scale back. And maybe we had 6 employees furloughed at the beginning, but we're only going to be bringing back 4. But with this infusion of cash and dollars up front, we can definitely bring back 5. So it'll be, up to the business to demonstrate that either they've contemplated this and even made an announcement to some of their employees, or here's our financial analysis. We're running at 75% of what we normally did. And, while we've struggled to keep the employees on, without these dollars, we're just going to have to lose a few people. So be as clear as you can in the narrative and in the, profit loss statement, balance sheet, and any other financials you'd like to upload to justify that.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move into a few questions about filling out the application and submitting them as we kind of wrap up this live Q&A session today. So as far as filling out the application, I've had several questions on the DUNS number. So if someone doesn't have a DUNS number, where could they get that? Or is there another number like a social security number or FEIN number they can use on the application?
Brian, where do you register for that?
So the DUNS number, you can go, it's through, so DUNS is short for Duns and Bradstreet. So you would go through Duns and Bradstreet to apply for that. And it's a simple process. You would then, going through that process, you would use your FEIN number in that portal, and then they would give you the DUNS number through that process. The reason why we do require it is it is a requirement of HUD to have that number as part of the federal process, but it is fairly easy to go through.
Okay, so that's a number they do need to get a hold of then.
Correct.
And then for applications for the ownership information, I've had a couple different flavors of questions about what owners need included on the application. But I guess the simplest one there being, do all owners need to be included, or can one owner apply?
So we're looking for that more than 20% ownership interest. In order to qualify as a low-income business, all owners are going to need to submit their backup documentation to show that they are, in fact, each household is considered low income. So, that could get tricky if you have 5 co-owners all at 20%. In order to demonstrate that, all 5 business owners would need to be low income. So, that's something that's a little bit tougher, and I would look into the job creation or job retention if you're looking to try and qualify for this program. One quick follow-up, Jessica. My colleague texted me, 1099 employees would not count. So there's an answer for you on that.
Okay, thank you. And then in looking to submitting applications, is the application, can it be saved and come back to you, or do you have to do it all in one sitting?
So you can definitely save it. One thing I will say, there are a lot of tools out there where it automatically saves. This tool does not do that. So after you filled in 3 or 4 answers, just go ahead and hit the save button, but you can definitely come back. There's actually a little circle that shows the percentage that's complete. When you go to hit submit, also, if something isn't filled in that's required, it will pop up in yellow. So you have a chance to go back and revisit that question.
Okay. And then just wrapping us up here, as far as who's making decisions and reviewing, can you guys talk a little bit about who's doing the review of applications and what that process is going to be looking like?
Yeah, so this is going to be truly a team effort through this, and that we created this program as a team. We'll be doing the review of this as a team as well, and so we have Invest Aurora. Our complete staff will be 100% working on this program, making sure that those applications are reviewed and deemed as complete. We'll also be working with Chris, his team over at Community Development, the Mayor's Office of Economic Development, and that we really do hope and expect to have way more applications than we can fund through this program. So working through this as efficiently as possible is going to be important to us. And again, kind of going back to the lottery, prioritizing those applications that go through that are picked in the lottery, and then one by one going through those. So it's definitely a team effort. We'll be looking at these, not only from as I had mentioned, from a qualitative standpoint, that we're looking at each one for that need base, but then also those businesses that can continue to contribute to Aurora's local economy. Those are able to either retain or create new jobs and grow in the city.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for answering questions today. There were far more questions than we got to on the line. So like we said, those are definitely questions Invest Aurora, the city's team, will be following up with, and you can reach out to them as well. So that email address on your screen is stable@investaurora.org. You can send any questions there, and they'll get you those really specific answers that may apply just to your business on a case-by-case basis. So as a reminder, today's webinar has been recorded. We'll be emailing this out to you for access later or to share with colleagues, maybe other owners who need to see this. You'll also be able to find it on Invest Aurora's website at investaurora.org/stablefund. Also have it on social media later today and on the Chamber's COVID-19 website. So lots of ways you'll be able to re-access this information if you want to rewind and see part of the presentation again. I also want to point out and just remind everyone that this is just one source of funds and one way that all of these entities can help your business. So make sure that you are checking in the chat box there. Colleen and Alexis are dropping some additional links for you to look at. So there are, on the COVID-19 website, there are federal sources of funds, state sources of fund, as well as a list of private funding sources that we've been vetting through and compiling for you. So I know funding is such an important thing right now. We want to continue to give you those avenues to get it. So in addition to this recording today, you'll be receiving all of those links. You'll also get our speaker's contact information and the slides from today's presentation, along with a short survey that we would really appreciate if you would give us some feedback on. Like we said, we'll be following up with you on all of your questions after this. But with that, Brian, Chris, thank you so much for being here with us today, and to everyone that logged on, thank you. Please stay safe and be well.
Bye. Thank you, Jessica.